Okay, everybody, you're in for a treat. Fans of the hit HBO show Succession know him as the ruthless billionaire father of one of the most dysfunctional families on TV. And now, just like the Logan Roy character he plays, actor Brian Cox is not holding anything back, giving us a brutally honest assessment of Hollywood during a career spanning more than 50 years. It's all for his new memoir, Putting the Rabbit in the Hat. And we can tell you there are plenty of famous names mentioned, for better or worse, we should note, along the way, as well as behind-the-scenes stories from the show that has made him a household name.
Boar on the floor. Boar on the floor. Kendall, ring the troops. Boar on the floor. Guys, boar on the floor. Get down. Greg, on the floor, boar.
Boar on the floor.
Come on, Frank. Boar on the floor. Frank.
Why am I in? How the would I know, Greg? You think I have a wrestling explanation for this?
Frank.
Boar on the
Feed
floor.
the piggies, guest of honor. That's it. Boar on the floor. Boar on the floor. Oink for your sausages, piggies. Shh. Oink for your sausages, piggy. Oink, oink.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oink for your sausages. Tom, oink.
Oink.
No half-hearted oink. I want full-hearted oink.
Oink, 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 oink.
On the count of three, the last piggy to eat a sausage is the mole.
That doesn't seem like a very good system.
Hilarious and disturbing at the same time. And the great actor Brian Cox joins me now. We should say Succession streams on HBO Max, which is owned by the same parent company as CNN. But Brian, you have said you can't defend your character, Logan Roy, but you can relate to him. When the show first started, a lot of people thought this was a show based on Rupert Murdoch and his family, but as the show has evolved, there are nods to Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, even the Trump family, what you call the tragedy of entitlement. Let's talk about that. Explain that for us.
Well, I think one of the problems is this loss of reality that people have when they are entitled. There are a few exceptions, of course, but seemingly there's a kind of continuing thing, of going on. We see the same in my country with Prince Andrew, and his now he's asking for his teddy bears to be counted every night before he went to bed. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it really is ridiculous. These people are so spoiled by their wealth, and they lose a sense of reality and a sense of where they're coming from, and it's both deeply irritating, but also very funny.
But is it the Trump family that we're seeing? Is it the Murdoch family that we're seeing? Is it a combination of a bunch of different families that the writers are having some fun with?
Well, yeah, I think there are influences, of course, but it's the Roy family really is the principle. So they are a created entity. They are different, They're certainly not as stupid as the Trumps. They're a little bit more intelligent, I think. So there's a sort of, but there are crossovers. I can see that. And naturally, audiences will make those crossovers.
Absolutely. And you've played some magnificent roles over the year. I mean, folks should know the original Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter, which is a masterpiece, I have to say, Braveheart, the Jason Bourne films, Churchill. But you also write about the curse of Brian Cox. Can you talk about that?
Well, the curse of Brian Cox is this thing of arriving too late to the party, in a way. One of the things that's always problematic, especially in where we are now, which is Oscar season. And Oscar season kind of goes on from really, I mean, it should be based on the year's work, but it never is based on the year's work. What it's based on is the work from Thanksgiving to Christmas. And if a film gets into Thanksgiving and Christmas, you're in with a chance. But if your film comes out before then, forget it. And I've been subject to that's the Brian Cox curse. For instance, an example is Churchill. I played Churchill, and I played it, and it all came out in June. But by the time the other film came along, then I was history. So, but I don't. I mean, that's just, that's part of what this business does, and you get used to it, especially after 50 years. Well, actually, nearly 60 years now. I'm sort of immune to it, really.
Well, it's been an amazing career, and so much of it is just so apparent in every page that you write in this book. I don't need to tell you, you've gotten quite a bit of press for not just the stories that you tell, but the unabashed opinions you give on celebrities. You say of Steven Seagal, and I had to laugh out loud when I read this. He is as ludicrous in real life as he appears on screen. He radiates a studied serenity as though he's on a higher plane to the rest of us. And while he's certainly on a different plane, no doubt about it, it's probably not a higher one. And about Johnny Depp, you write, I mean, Edward Scissorhands, let's face it, if you come on with hands like that and pale, scarred face makeup, you don't have to do anything. And he didn't, and subsequently he's done even less. You also give it to Quentin Tarantino, Ed Norton, Kevin Spacey. You're no sacred cows in this book.
No, there are no sacred cows, but I'm a bit too quick sometimes for my own good. You know, I mean, I'll go for the laugh sometimes. And in fact, I have written, it was supposed to appear in the American publication, but it never got there. There's an addendum, which I put everything in perspective. You know, when I say, you know, I think I said that Johnny Depp was overrated. I mean, I think Johnny Depp is a very good actor. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike his acting, but I think he himself would probably admit that he feels he's overrated because he's quite a shy personality. And I do think that what happens to a lot of actors is a lot of things get projected onto them, which is sometimes is a bit of a burden. And I suspect that that's a burden for him. I don't know the man. I mean, I don't dislike any. You know, I've seen some of his work. I think is excellent, but I do feel that that's what he suffers from.
And turning back to Succession, this season we saw your character Logan Roy essentially picking the GOP nominee for president based on the power he wields as head of a right-wing media empire. If Donald Trump entered that fictional world, how do you think he would have fared with Logan?
How he would have figured with Logan? I don't think Logan would have much respect for Donald Trump. I think that he would think there's an element of sham about Donald Trump. And I think Logan would see through that sham, and therefore he would not take him very seriously. And certainly, if he was around during his last presidency, he wouldn't take him at all. So I don't, you know, he's not an idiot, Logan. He is quite a smart cookie. And also he straddles two cultures. He straddles the UK culture and the American culture. So he has a sense of the world, which is, you know, I mean, he's a misanthrope. He's as miserable as hell. So I don't excuse him in that way, but I do think he's probably a little bit more intelligent than the ex-POTUS.
Right. Well, that's apparent. And Brian, you made headlines. You made headlines for saying that your castmate, Jeremy Strong, quote, genuinely suffers while method acting as your son, Kendall Roy, on Succession. What is it like on the set playing these intense, dysfunctional characters for hours at a time? I mean, I can understand why you would say that about your fellow cast members, because when you're watching this, it is disturbing to slip into this world. Yeah.
And I think Kendall is a particularly disturbed character, and he gets more and more disturbed as the show has gone on. And I think it's, you know, it's very heady playing somebody like Kendall. You've got to have, you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, Jeremy does the job. He's excellent. We get on very well. Our work together is always very fine. And the scenes, like the scene that we had and the dinner scene at the end of episode 7 was a blinder, and he's great to play with. I mean, you know, really. But I do worry about the fact that this kind of, you know, kind of sinking yourself into the role to such an extent that it's dangerous. You know, you've got to be careful. You know, you've got to be very, very careful with acting. You know, I mean,
absolutely.
It's really interesting to me that Daniel Day-Lewis retired at the age of 55. Well, I'm 75, and I have no intention of retiring. But I think if I'd lived the life that Daniel had lived and done it the way he'd done it, I might have retired at 55 as well, from sheer exhaustion.
No question about it. And you see stories from time to time about actors who have plunged too far into those roles, and it can take a toll. Before we go, Brian, we have to ask you this question. It is the billion-dollar Logan Roy question at the heart of Succession. Which child should Logan Roy hand the company over to? Is it Kendall? Is it Roman? Is it Shiv? Is it Connor? I mean, I can't imagine it being Connor, but maybe Shiv. What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was going to be Shiv. I really did think for a long time it was going to be Shiv, but then Shiv can't keep her mouth shut. And that's one of the things that you have to do is keep everything close. You can't share too much. I also thought that Roman was in with a chance, but then he's got this potty mouth that gets him into, he's,
Yes, he does.
Maybe Logan has contributed to that. But
Just a touch.
so it's very hard to say what child really,